I'm Orlando Jones, and I just want you to know that the Moana Nui podcast will be starting soon. Stay tuned, yo.
I'm Veronica Taylor, and from myself and Ash Ketchum, I just want to say, Moana Nui, I choose you!
Aloha, everyone, and thank you for joining the Moana Nui podcast. We're so excited for you to be part of the show. As you probably see, for those that are watching our show, we have two of our favorite members of our team joining us right here. We have both Jazzy and Shae to talk about tonight's episode for Rain Talks on the psychology and spirituality of love and relationships. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Jazzy and Shae to dive in. And of course, everybody, definitely put any questions, any responses in the comment section so they can see it. And that way we can address any questions you have on any of the top things that they're talking about tonight, because we want that engagement from you in the audience that are tuning in. So I'm going to hand it to y'all.
Hello, hello,
Hey,
hello.
Hey, hey. Gorgeous.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you. Thank
Good
you.
to see you.
So, we got our wonderful intro. Tonight we are talking, like Dana said, about psychology and spirituality of love and relationships. Um, I want to let Jazzy, do the spirituality Zen thing that she does because she knows that part. Not that I don't, but everybody to each their own. And I'm going to talk about the brain part of it, the thinking parts that we tend to forget to do a lot of times, or not even recognize that we're doing. So let's start out just by kind of defining love.
So how I define love is on so many levels. Like love can be, I love a flower because it's pretty and I like looking at it, or love can be something where my heart just feels so much compassion, and so I give love out for that. Love is very much a variant and I feel a very perspective type of thing. It just really depends on how you believe love to be and how you then express that love outwardly. So that's what I believe love is. I think it's very variational depending on who you are and your environments and whatnot. So, what are your thoughts on what love is?
So, taking my own personal thoughts out of it, doing the science thing, love is a series of chemical reactions in the brain and body that cause all kinds of things to go basically kapooey, right? You get butterflies in your tummy, you get, sometimes people get the cold sweats and people get the hot sweats. It's just a series of random chemical reactions so that we know that there's something going on here. For me, love is the most powerful, undefinable essence of all things that that there is. Love is what keeps us all from basically flying off the planet while also causing us to fly off the planet. We go so far out, right? And so to me, the most important thing to know about love and why it's so crucial is because, back to the science part, we were not meant to do this human thing alone. So for the other part of, or another part of this conversation where we're talking about relationships, I want to make sure that we know that we're defining relationships not just in terms of romantic relationships, or heteronormative relationships or anything like that. We're talking about how we relate to each other as human beings, or as humans and fur babies, or whatever the case may be. All of those kinds of things, because believe it or not, some of those same chemical reactions happen even for things that we don't get. Okay, things that we don't get to recognize are actually love connections on the inside. So just wanted to make sure that we're clear on how we're defining relationships, so that we can have a good conversation and know what we're talking about. So, Jazzy, we were talking in pre-production. Pre-production. We were talking in pre-production, um, and you were explaining some of the spiritual elements that you wanted to get into. So tell us some more about that.
Yeah, so when it comes to spirituality, they have there is three groups that relationship and spirituality connections when it comes to relationships are in a sense gauged in. So there is a me orientation, which is called euros or arrows. That's more of your sexuality, your sensuality, very, a physical attraction. So again, we're going through across different planes. So we have, being attracted to a physical person or being attracted to a flower. There is just that physical attraction and that type of that spark that people call it. And it's me oriented because it's a reflection of how you yourself feel and how you are gaining from that relationship. And then you have the phila. I do have my notes. I have the phila, which is where you have friendship, common goals, there's the values and all of that. And so that is a very we orientation. So that is where we get our respect. This is something that we can give out and we can also receive at the same time. So it's very we. You're considering yourself and someone else or another being. So this can go between a parent and a child, any other family member, between you and them. It could even go between you and your pet. It's definitely very, like I said, we oriented. So, we're gonna, a lot of pet owners will be like, okay, I'm gonna train my dog not to bite people. And then at the same time, you're gonna give them that reassurance that they are in a safe space and that they are gonna be loved and well taken care of. So it's very similar when it comes to that. So in this, we have a lot of friendships that come through this. We have people that, acquaintances or even just people in passing, where you're at the grocery store and you look at somebody and you smile and you receive a smile back. That is very much a phila transaction on that spiritual level. And then you have the agate, which is much more than that. That's where you have your companionship. You have someone who is sharing that root and that groundedness. You also share the passion and you guys are very much aligned. So this is where we come into the others orientation. And the reason for that is because it's not that we're taking away from ourselves, it's that we are sitting in gratitude of what we are receiving, that we also pour back out in that way, so it can continue to flow in that beautiful constant circulation. And it's a flow, it's not just a one-way street or hey, we're here, but it's a constant flow and a combination of all of the things. You can be attracted to someone and that be a me, and then you have a we where they also are attracted to you, and then you guys have this understanding of your values and whatnot. But when you have that type of passion and companionship, I mean, this isn't just about being in a soulmate relationship per se, which a lot of people can recognize that sometimes soulmates is not just your cohabitating partner or spouse or something like that. Your soulmate could be your pet because they just understand your nonverbal cues as you understand theirs. A soulmate can be your best friend or a sibling, not because it's sexual, but because it is very much a companionship and very passionate, that also involves those values and those key things that allow that flow, so that way you are in that connection. And it's like, it's almost like how our electromagnetic field of ourselves work. It's not stagnant, it's a constant flow. So whether it's reciprocated back and forth, or one person gives a little more because someone's feeling bad, and vice versa. Like I said, that's why it works with pets and other people as well.
So, one of the things that you just said that I definitely want to kind of pull into, in last month's episode, we talked about trauma bonding. We talked about how it is that we end up bound sometimes to each other in a really negative way because we make these connections to each other. I don't want to say arbitrarily, but a lot of times the way that we connect to each other is random, right? Or at least it seems like it is. Sometimes it's actually not so random. Sometimes the people in our lives, because dogs don't do this, right? Some people in our lives can manipulate situations so that we can start feeling or thinking we're feeling that love, so that we start thinking that we're feeling that connection, that bond, um, by love bombing, right? And for those of you who don't remember what love bombing is, it's when you're getting showered with lots and lots of attention and affection, and oh my God, this is so great. And it's just a constant storm of love and affection. And you think, oh my God, this is great. But you don't realize that you're drowning, right? And then when you finally do recognize that you are drowning, um, the other person, because we're talking humans in this moment, the other person makes it seem like you are off because how could you not receive my love, right? How could you not understand what you just need to know what love really is? This is how love is supposed to be, right? But you never have those maybe deeper conversations where you're really getting to know each other, or you never get to actually do the reciprocal part because a relationship, as we're talking about, a relationship doesn't work if there's not reciprocation. If it's all on one person, there's always going to be some kind of a feeling of inadequacy or insecurity or something along that lines, because it's like that person is doing so much and you're not doing your part. So that inequity makes it very uncomfortable eventually. So you can't actually function in that relationship without some give and take. It's like, okay, I understand this is how you give love, but can it be my turn to give? Or is it not okay for me to reciprocate what it is that you're giving, at least in my own language? Right? And so these are the kinds of bonds that we also want to talk about when it comes to love and um, spirituality and so forth. One of the big quotes is you should be equally yoked, right? And people once upon a time used to think that that meant, oh, we have to have the same kind of money, or oh, we have to have the exact same set of values, like Jazzy mentioned, where you share values. You have to have these things have to be the same. But what that actually means when we're talking about the psychology and spirituality of love and relationships is that you have to be able to meet each other, not halfway, not, you have to just be able to meet each other, right? You have to, hey, I had such and such a kind of day, and this is where I am. And the other person's like, oh, okay, I guess I can be there too. And then on the opposite side, where the other person may have whatever kind of a day, maybe they had an exciting day, maybe they had a horrible day, maybe they had a great day, whatever that is, where they might need that kind of support or that kind of um, grounding, right? Where they have the need, you meet them where they are. So you just have to be able to meet each other, right? That's what being equally yoked is. So it can't be all or nothing. It should be give and take, balance, where things are happening evenly and healthily. You can't have steak and potatoes every day, no matter how delicious it might be, right? You got to throw in a vegetable every so often, maybe a piece of fish or, uh, I don't know, some lamb, whatever. You have to throw something else in there to make sure that you're having a balanced diet because your body does not function on one or two ingredients alone. You have to have a little bit of all of the things. So that's when we're talking about love and psychology and spirituality. Your spirit will speak to the person who, yes, understands the language, but also who can receive those messages and give back in kind. Does that make sense, Jazzy?
Oh, absolutely. And I actually would love to roll off of that if that's okay with you, because a
Please.
lot of people will then, like you said, when you are being love bombed, a lot of the times you don't get to express your side of it, or, because you're just so overwhelmed and so bombarded. But a lot of the times, too, when it comes to the spirituality of relationships, a lot of people do not take into account of the growth. So there's a lot of times where you and someone else will have different growth patterns. So like you said, we have to meet each other. So one person may be getting a promotion at work, and then the other person, whether friend, spouse, whatever the case may be, they're still waiting for their time to shine. Well, if we sit here and just fester and not meet each other at the same where we need to be, I shouldn't say the same place because that's not what I meant. I was trying to mean it the same way you did. If we don't meet each other, cheer on. If you're waiting for your big break, cheer on those that you have these relationships with, because that gratitude and all of that is where you will feel fulfilled too. Because when you actually do have love in your relationships, it's not about competition. It's not about who's doing better than me, you're worrying about just yourself, because love needs to also be within self. You have to love yourself. You have to honor yourself. And so when people are being love bombed, there's a lot of times that they don't even have time to think or process or just be able to proceed with things. And that self-love, like you were saying, they end up building insecurities. I'm not providing this, I'm not providing that. So such negative self-talk, and it's being implemented onto them. And that's where that manipulation is easier to come into play. And sometimes people do that to themselves because they're competing with other people. And so if your best friend is getting her promotion, maybe there's conversations you guys didn't have of how much she struggled or how much she was going through her mental health or what she was going through. So being there to support her when it's your time, she's going to be your biggest freaking cheerleader. She's going to be one of the first ones that are going to be like, I knew you could do this. I know this was going to come to you. And you know, there's so much about the fact that there is a connection. When people don't feel supported, they get to the point where they're just like, they kind of get to the point where they either question themselves or they question the relationship entirely. And that's a lot of investment to have happened when it just gets one situation that makes someone feel inadequate, and then they start questioning themselves or start pinning themselves and feeling like they're competing with someone constantly. And this can happen in many different situations. Especially in the world of social media, so many people are in that heightened comparison. Hey, this person has this many followers, this person has this kind of content, oh, this person just talked about being monetized, this person now has sponsors. Okay, well, if you want to do what they're doing, find your way to do it, because every single influencer or every single successful person, they're not following the same roadmap. They're following the roadmap that is meant for them to follow to reach where they're at. We can be all given the same guideline, but how we utilize the tools is really what's important. And so, when you spoke about just meeting people where they're at, and then you brought up love languages, oh my gosh, love languages are such a big tool to use, because I've noticed and I've witnessed and researched and whatnot. There's a lot, and which you can touch on this because dives into the psychology of it. A lot of people, I feel, love in, like, they want to love others in their love language instead of learning the other person's love language and allowing to, give to them in their love language. And I think this is where animals come into such a beautiful example of love languages, because your cat or your dog or, whatever pet you have, they don't talk. They can't tell you, hey, this hurts me. They have cues, they have, verbal and nonverbal, but there's not words. And you're going to know that nonverbal language, in a sense, like they're not using physical words, and they know yours without you ever speaking. So love languages are very much, like, if I'm upset and I want my dog to hug me, my dog's gonna hug me because they know that's what I need, not because I say, hey, come here, hug me. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Although I've totally told my dog, well, when he was still living, definitely told him I need a hug, and he looks at me and then comes over and puts his paw there. It's like, okay, have your hug. So
I love
that
that
tells
though.
me
And
that's
he's
what I
literally
wanted
like,
to do.
I have to.
Definitely does what I need him to do when I ask him to. But no, that is definitely a great place to go with this. Because love languages are so crucial. Um, a lot of times, and I've explained this in a couple of to some of my clients in couples therapy and also in family therapy, where the thought process is, um, you should know better. Says who? This is not a conversation we ever actually really had. Or you had that conversation and you agreed, but I never co-signed on that, right? Um, there are so many relationships happening out there where the simple fact is you don't even actually have the same definition of a relationship. And you've never actually had the conversation because the assumption was made that when you said we're going to be in a relationship and the other person was like, yes, we are, that you were both talking about the same thing. Right. And that happens all the time where people are talking, hi, how are you? And the other person's like, I'm great. But what's actually happening is, I'm not great and I need a companion. And the other person's like, no, I'm great just by myself. And you're welcome to join me on my ride. Right. Those kinds of conversations are
Yes,
happening
yes, yes.
all the
Oh my gosh,
time
yes.
without ever actually happening out loud. Right. And so, where the person who is feeling the need for the relationship, right? The person who needs the companionship or whatever is saying, oh, they understand that this is what I need. And the other person is like, this is a great person for me to go traveling with. Now we're not having the same relationship at all. Some needs are definitely getting met, but we're not having the same conversation. We're eventually going to come to a place where we have to have that conversation because somebody's going to recognize, okay, you're in a whole different realm than I am, right? You're not looking for what I'm giving. And then there's the other side where the sometimes the person doesn't even know what they're giving. There are those situations where somebody thinks that they're doing all the right things because they're being honest and open, but in fact, they're actually still doing love bombing things or they're still being manipulative, so that they can have the one-sided relationship that they really want without actually having to do the give and the take. It's so important to understand that the quote unquote love language, it's more than just quality time and um, words of affirmation and things like that. It's also plain and simple English or French or German or whatever it is that they speak in Uzbekistan, right? It's
Right.
so much more than just that thing. It's also what are the conversations that you are having flat out. And How are you having this conversation? Are you having an argument about feeding the dog when what you're actually upset about is not getting to come home and just relax, but you're focusing
Yes.
on the dog? And so
Right.
somebody the next day feeds the dog. That means that there should be no problem, right? But no, because you didn't actually convey or have the conversation to say, what I actually need is to just sit down and relax and not have to worry about feeding the dog, giving you attention, coddling your ego, um, changing the air filter, filling up whatever that list of things that happens when you get home or when you're whatever the case may be that you needed, but you didn't communicate what you actually needed. You just communicated, why
That
isn't the
right
dog
there. Right there. Communication.
fed? And
Because
yes, you
communication
tend
has
to
to be
focus just
constant.
the immediate.
It's not just a one-time talk. Because when you evolve and the other person evolves and you're not evolving exactly on the same time, because we are still our own individual souls, constant communication has to happen. Yes. Yes.
One plus
Yes.
one is equal to two, not one.
All the time.
That whole idea of we're two becoming one is bullshit. Like a whole heap of it. Okay? You are still two individuals floating along this earthly plane trying to figure shit out. Both of you. And neither one of you know where you're going, by the way. Okay? You're out there, you're floating along, you're trying to figure things out, and it just so happens that you met each other at the right time or the wrong time, and you're now trying to navigate this life thing together. To assume that either one of you knows anything without actually having the conversation. Hey, my favorite color is blue. Really? Me too. As opposed to, I see you always wear blue. Does that mean that that's your favorite color? You know, where you make the assumption because we tend to do that a lot.
A
I
lot of
thought that
people
what
make
she
a lot
said
of
was this.
assumptions. A lot of
Yeah,
assumptions. Oh, I saw her at this restaurant, so this must be her favorite place. No, you just happened to see her at that restaurant that one time, and she did enjoy her meal, but that doesn't mean that's her favorite food. So when you think that that's where you're going to keep taking this woman the whole time you're with her, oh, I took you to your favorite place, she's going to sit there and be like, don't you know I go with my girlfriends to this place because this place is actually my favorite place? You just happen to have seen me at this place. Totally. I mean, that's the biggest thing is a lot of the communication, I mean, it's really easy when hormones are flying and whatnot, and people are just like, I'm sexually attracted, I'm physically attracted, or, hey, we get along really well, and this, that, and the other. And then people wonder why they hit turbulence. And it's because you hit the ground running, all in, like you said, all the feelings, the tingles, the sweats, you're just like, oh, this makes me feel this way. And then you come to reality and you go, so this is when this person makes me feel this way. But now that we're getting to the nitty gritty, we're getting deeper, we're getting closer, I'm understanding them more. You're going, I mean, and it also
you're
happens with the opposite.
saying
There's a lot of times, there's a lot of
you're
times you can
saying in
look at
your
somebody and be like,
relationship,
mm-hmm.
maybe the sex is great, but I can't trust you with money. Or in our
Oh,
non-relationships, really, in our non-romantic relationships, it's I really like going to the club with you, but your conversation is absolutely just so meaningless, and I have no interest in actually talking to you, right?
exactly.
Or I'd really much rather just hang out with my dog than actually have to spend time with you because you're just so miserable. But I feel bad, so I guess I'll be here anyway. These are the kinds
Yes.
of relationships that we engage in all the time, right? People being afraid to let go of a relationship that actually isn't working for them because they spent so much time in it. Okay, you know what? Consider this. How many years does it take for cancer to develop?
Oh,
Okay, think about
hmm.
it. Okay, it takes
Yeah, that one's
sometimes
kind
a
of
really,
stunted
really, really
me.
long time. Yeah, sometimes it takes a really, really, really long time for cancer to develop.
Yeah.
But as soon as you find it, are you not looking for a way to cut that shit out? You want to cut it out. You want to inject whatever it is that you can into it. You want somebody to literally poison your entire body just to get this one cancer out because you know that that cancer can kill you. And yet, when it comes to our relationships, when they can be toxic, when they can be painful, when they are not serving us, it's like, I guess this is fine.
Girl. Facts. I mean, I can hit it on a personal level. Saw something within 6 months and took me 5 years to leave. So, yeah, facts. Because you get into the place where you love bomb yourself. You literally get it into your own head of whatever the psychology might be for you to keep
At any given
being
moment.
there. But either way, you're right. It's still a toxicity. It's still damaging. You know, there's folks that I've talked to, clients that I've mentored, whatnot, and they're just like, this is who you are now. And I'm just over here like, there's a lot of work that has to go into this because there's a lot of undoing and a lot of, relearning. And, it does start with self and acknowledgement and that accountability. And again, that just ropes right back into the fact that when you have relationships, you have to have accountability. You have to have that integrity. You have to have that acknowledgement and communication, because without it, it's either going to keep you stuck or it's going to make you flourish. It's the tools that help gear the boat to wherever it needs to go, but whatever direction you choose to use it or the lack of using it is where you're going to go. Choppy waters, or are you going to go smooth sailing? Yes.
There's a couple of words that you just used there that are probably trigger words for the folks out there in internet land.
I
Things like
apologize.
accountability. Whew. And choice. Oh my goodness. Choice? You mean I have choices? Oh no. I don't have a choice in this. This is what I have to do. Listen, for all of my brown people out there and all of my pale people out there too, a wise person once said, you ain't got to do shit but be black and die. And for my paler, complected people out there, you don't have to do shit but be you and die. Whatever you are, just be you. Okay? Those are two things that you have to do. Everything else, because it used to be black, pay taxes and die, but apparently even that other one isn't actually on the list. You can avoid taxes for a while, apparently. So be you and die. Those are the two things that you have to do. Anything else is icing on the cake or something you need to toss away. Holding on to toxicity, holding on to things that don't serve you, holding on to ideas, even this idea of, let's say, traditional union or forever friendship, right? You have to be best friends forever. How about being best friends for this week? Let's go out there and have the absolute best, most amazing relationship. And then that was fun and move on with life. Because that too can be very fulfilling without having all the extra baggage. And no, I'm not saying just toss people to the wayside because people are worthless. I'm not saying any such thing. What I'm saying is that there are certain ideas that we have been socialized to simply accept and hold on to that have never served anyone. Some of our relationships are meant to be for forever, right? Some of them are, and then some of them aren't. Some of them are just meant for that 5-minute conversation where you get, oh, this was good. And then you get to move on with life and maybe share it with your forever friend or your bestie or your hubby or your wifey or your long-term companion of whichever variety, or your thruple or quadruple, whatever it is that you've got going on. You share it with those people so that you can then walk on that message together, right? Because a 5-minute conversation can be so much more impactful than we could ever recognize if we allow it to happen the way it was meant to, instead of attaching these extra ideas to it that don't have to be there.
Ooh,
You can
that's the
meet
word right
someone.
there. Attaching. So many
Oh,
people stick with
yeah.
attachments And like you said, some people's the season, some people's the reason, and some people just need to be a
Hmm.
passing. And that attachment,
That's right.
yes, like there's like a, oh, this person gave me a compliment, so I want to be their friend because they made me feel good. Again, that brings you to the eros where it's a me orientated. And then you have, people that are like, oh, it made me feel good to keep giving this to someone else. That's the others and or the we oriented where you're like, I'm going to give to them, I'm going to give to them, I'm going to get, and it's like it has to be a balance. There has to be somewhere for you to know where your attachments are and how to be attached, because it's okay to be attached, but it doesn't have to be a whole obligation and commitment. If that moment was just really beautiful, respect the moment. Don't make it an ideology or a potential and fixate on that. Take it for exactly what it is. Like I said, just be you. And literally hashtag authenticity. Just be you, and whatever's supposed to come your way in a line, go for it. Whether it's lesson or moving and evolving. Attachment. Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh,
Attachment
yes.
styles, of course, since we're here talking about attachment styles, our attachment styles are at the foundation of pretty much every relationship, including the relationship that we have with ourselves. Our attachment style is there toying with us like puppets. Okay. If we have, let's say, an insecure attachment style, and feel free to Google or maybe request that as one of our next episodes, just throw it out there, right? But your attachment style can be an insecure attachment style. And so that's the kind of attachment that has you waking up in a cold sweat, like, oh my God, I think I smell them thinking about someone else. And now you just can't let the idea go because you think someone else is on their mind for half a second. And it just must mean that they don't love you anymore because you're just that kind of insecure. So now you have to go back and call them at 2 o'clock in the morning and remind them, hey, I'm still here. I love you. You still love me, right? Okay, cool. Just making sure. And you know what? By the way, let's have breakfast tomorrow. And I think I want to marry you. So let's get married. What? Pause. Take a breath. All right.
It's like waking up from a bad dream and
Well,
thinking it was real, right?
yes, exactly. Right. So you want to make sure that your attachment style, because technically speaking, it's not like there's a quote unquote cure for attachment style. What there is, though, is a coping mechanism and tools on how to recognize, okay, this is my attachment style, causing me to act like an insane person. I am not going to call this person at 2 o'clock in the morning because even if they are thinking about someone else, that doesn't necessarily have to mean that they're no longer in love with me or that we're no longer good friends anymore. Just because I'm having this thought, i.e., nightmare, real. No, just because I'm having this thought, it doesn't have to take away from everything else. Let me go have a glass of water because hydrating is important and take my ass back to bed before I do something stupid. Okay? Um, that
Yes.
is the train of thought that you might want to use when your attachment style is causing you to behave in a way that is unbecoming of a sane and healthy person in a relationship. And then, of course, there's the option of let me call my therapist, or at least send my therapist a text message because clearly I'm losing it and I'm not sure why. Right? So you've got options, but yeah, hydrate, call a therapist, but don't call whoever it is that you think is thinking about somebody else. Because even if they are, that's not a reflection of you, that's a reflection of them. Or thinking about somebody else isn't necessarily a bad thing because it's just a thought.
Well, exactly. That's definitely, to sit here and think that we don't have external thoughts of, other people. Just because I have my dogs, that doesn't mean that if I see a German Shepherd that is out and about and I'm not going to be, oh, that doesn't mean that my dog, yeah, the dog's going to smell the other dog on me and they have every right to be upset that mommy, went ahead and touched another animal. How dare you? But come on now, they forgive us, we give them a treat, they move on with their lives. But, I also do feel like those attachments are, very related to our internal. So this comes to, upbringing, it comes to social situations. I mean, just all of our experiences. And that is something that I feel really needs to be touched on, is understanding that when it does come to love and relationships, a lot of what our perspectives, our upbringing, our situations, what has happened, what hasn't happened, we could have just literally witnessed something at a restaurant, or we could have seen a situation that was in passing, and those can actually still be an impactful thing in of our lives. And a lot of people will sit there and be like, well, I had a great upbringing, I had beautiful parents, I had a good home, I don't have any trauma. Well, everybody has gone through something that made them feel less than at some point, whether it was school, a social event, a birthday party. If you fall and someone laughs at you, it can be as simple as that. Is you tripped and you fell and 10 people watched, one person helped while the others were laughing. That's an impactful event. And those impactful events can end up initiating or creating how you decide you're going to love yourself and love others, and then you can also get to a point where, I know, speaking from just personal experience and hearing other stories, is there are times that you will go, oh, wait a minute, that person has a little too much similarity to somebody else that burned me. I don't think I can trust that person. But in reality, those similarities does not equivalent to they're the exact same person. Granted, follow your intuition. I mean, if you really feel that you shouldn't be going in directions, I'm not telling anybody, oh, you just need to go follow that. No, 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 no. Follow your intuition. If your gut's telling you no, no, no. But if it's in your head and you can't actually validate it, other than, oh, this person had this habit and now this person has this habit. Like, say somebody's likes to go to drink at the bar on a Friday night, and the person that burned you was a habitual Friday night bar patron, and then you meet somebody else and they also enjoy going to the bar on Friday nights. That doesn't necessarily mean that these two people are the exact same. It's just something that they enjoy to do. So that's definitely something that I don't think a lot of people.
Just to piggyback on that, and also bring us close to the close. Um, yes, your attachment styles and all of that come from our earliest, and I do mean earliest experiences. Some of these reactions happen in utero, like even before we are out in the world and existing. You are experiencing life while you are in your mother's body. Okay. So from that very first experience when you came out and the doctor smacked you and you cried, if you didn't get hugged fast enough, or the AC was too cold, and so your first introduction to the world was it's a cold world out here, right? Those very first earliest experiences have an impact on how it is that we attach, and how it is that we experience things, and how it is that we interpret our place in the world. And so it's really important to be able to recognize that those things are happening. You don't get over that time that you were born and the doctor smacked you and the AC just so happened to hit you. That's literally not something that you get over. That's something that is imprinted on your person forever, ever. So when people like to say, oh, I already got over that, I'm like, okay, sure. I'll see you next week. Because you don't get over anything, technically. You ignore things, you pack it up in a box and you hide it in the closet with all the rest of the dead bodies. Like, that's what we tend to do. We hardly ever actually get over things. They have an impact on us, and we're constantly looking for similarities so that we can protect ourselves from whatever it is that thing is that we think we actually got over. So, yes, super valid point, super important point to understand that everything that we have gone through, big or small, is a part of our DNA. It's in there.
That part.
And our job as humans humaning is, like I like to say, make our 50% of every interaction not so traumatic for the rest of the world. Okay? Make your 50% the best that you can possibly make it. You don't have to be an asshole for your whole life. Maybe some of your life. Because sometimes people need to
Stand up for
be told
yourself.
some
Don't
things.
let people bulldoze you.
So every so often, but not your whole life. Okay?
Right.
Try to be a good person in general. It doesn't cost anything and it feels good on the inside. And sometimes on the outside too. And when we're talking about building and maintaining our relationships and looking at the psychology and the spirituality of it, if we are going to be out here humaning in this cold world where doctors smack babies, I don't know if they still do that. I hope they don't. But if we're out there and we're doing this and trying to make it through, we have to recognize that our relationship with ourselves has to be the foundation of every healthy relationship. Your own insecurities will seep into your relationships and fuck things up. I don't know any better way to say it. That's it. Those are your
There's no better way
insecurities.
to say it, babe. No better way to say it. No
If
sugarcoat,
you
no
don't,
BS, no. Let me
nope,
fluff it up for you straight up. Love.
that's
Yes.
it. If you are going to be out there humaning and trying to be friends and trying to be partners and trying to be good parents, I jokingly sometimes say, thank God for shitty parents. If not, I'd have no job. Like, it is so important, right, to recognize that your insecurities fuck things up for everybody. So do your best to make your 50% matter because it does. Love you like you want to be loved. And if you can't, love you like you think you love someone else until you learn how you want to be loved.
Yes.
We have 2 minutes left to the show. Jazzy, do you have anything for us to close us out?
Woo. Girl, you're a hard one to follow. But yes, everything that you said was spot on. And that's definitely something that I always try to transmit out into the world through my profiles is about kindness. It is about healing. And it is also about recognizing everything within yourself. So, it's healing is a journey. It's, sometimes people think that healing is something that, oh, okay, I'm going to heal from the fact that this person hurt my feelings and all the other people I allowed in my life hurt my feelings this way. And healing is not about getting rid of what happened to you. It's about you learning how to unlearn what reactive traits you've encountered and started displaying, so that way when you project, you're not reactive. You're able to exist. You're not reacting out of trauma. You're not reacting out of these responses. And so having that responsibility and having that knowledge is so important because, like you said, make sure that your 50% is important and it's impactful and it is not going to further someone else's trauma because, yeah, kindness is free. So is authenticity. And love can be free too. So if it starts costing you your peace of mind, your boundaries, your values, it costs too much. So, yeah, just always love and always be kind and, yeah, stop the trauma. Definitely. Thank
Roxy
you so
says,
much for having me.
Roxy says, peace of mind is priceless. Roxy is my mom. Shout out to you, mom, for
Yes, thanks,
creating the
mamas.
foundation that is me. Um, Thank you, Dion. You know who you are to me. So thank you for tuning in today. Um, and thank you, everybody else, for coming in and sharing love with us on screen We are here the last Thursday of every month for Rain Talks. And I look forward to talking with you again. Have a great night.
I do.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in for Rain Talks. Like Shae said, tune in on the last Thursday of every month. And if you're watching this on the recording, definitely still comment because that way we can see it. We can address other questions, or if there's a topic that you're like, hey, it's not too personal, but it's personal enough. Can y'all talk about this? Because I need to make sure I'm not crazy, because this person I'm talking to is making me feel like I'm a little crazy, and I need to make sure is it me or is it them? You may want to submit that to us. You can send it to us on Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, or even comment here as you're watching this on YouTube and Twitch too. And that way we can bring it right back to Shae and Jazzy and say, hey, we got this as a topic from the audience. They'll love for you to talk about it. So once again, we like to thank both of them for their insight, for their knowledge on this particular topic. And I hope whatever you've heard and you taken in tonight, you can be able to resonate with that. Bring it to your therapist, because as Shae will say, if the day ends with Y, you need therapy. So go ahead, talk to your therapist. Even though you may want to talk to your friends and everything, sometimes your friends are not your therapists. They are just, they're there to be a sounding board, but they're not there to guide you through your mental and your emotional journey. A lot of times, sometimes, because a lot of times you may get misdirected and end up in a worse wreck than you were before. So go to the professionals. And if you're working for a corporate job or something, you have EAP. Call EAP. A lot of companies provide you so many free sessions. It could be 8 or 10 per year per incident. Call them, get those free sessions, start that work. Because as Shae say, it's your 50%. What's your 50% that you're doing to better yourself, better your relationships with others? Because all you're going to do is keep repeating that cycle and everything. So we'd like to thank you all for tuning in. Tune back in at 8:30 p.m. Eastern as we have our final episode of our Hawaii okay, Jazzy, I know I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong. I'm still learning my pronunciations. Olelo. Olelo. Thank you. Olelo, which we're going to be talking about that as far as this whole month, we've been talking about different terms from aloha to ohana. So many terms that are in the Hawaiian language to go deeper than the surface of the bare minimum that most people know and how it connects to the culture. So tune in at 8:30 so you can learn more of those of the Hawaiian language and how it connects to the culture and connects to the families and to the people of Hawaii. So we thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you later. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then. When they annexed Hawaii and called it Cedar Lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves the Republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No work out for all the locals, school will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if you put Hawaii in a perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course. Cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No work out for all the locals, school will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.